Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Today, we're going to shove some rad bolts into this thing and see what happens. There's a few complications with that. Here is our home planetoid. Here is Frizola. They are exactly 10 tiles apart, and we know, possibly from prior experience, that if you try to send rockets all the way out here, they may not be able to make it back home because of the cost of taking off and landing. So we made some upgrades to the ESS Let Us Land. Specifically, we added another small solid oxidizer tank and a large liquid fuel tank. And with their powers combined, the Let Us Land now has a range of 30 tiles. We had to sacrifice some solar panel modules. While we're in flight, I'm not too worried about it because the engine itself will keep this battery full. The issue comes when the rocket is either not flying around in the star map or sitting around on the planetoid. But we'll take care of that once we get there. Speaking of which, we're bringing a whole bunch of supplies. 5 tons of steel, plastic, glass, granite, and cobalt, plus 20 tons of phosphorite. I've got something up my sleeve. Additionally, the interior is outfitted with 10 tons of oxalite and 250,000 calories worth of berry sludge. We've made some changes to the crew just to flip it up a little bit and give HP Fangirl and Queen Calero a little bit of a break. Now we're sending Allison Honeywell and Carol. It's a good thing we've been here before, because we already have a beautiful rocket platform. I can't exactly remember why we came all the way out here. Was it for Sleet Wheat? It had to be for Sleet Wheat, right? But we even put down our beautiful little mini pot. But the reason why it's so good that we've already been here before, because now we don't have to worry about the Trailblazer module or the Rover module. With the dupes loaded up, let's get this mission started. One small step for dupes. One giant leap for dupe kind. While Carol and Allison are just getting their flight going, Lady Ruff's been busy with a bunch of missions out into the star map. To start off with, we added a couple more artifact transport modules, and that way we can grab 3 artifacts at a time. This time we got a couple of duplicates in the form of office mugs, but who doesn't like a good office mug? But look at this plasma lamp. 1,000 lux coming off of it. We're starting to get a pretty good collection of artifacts, but I'm going to keep sending Lady Ruff and the ESS Susan back out, because at the minimum, I'd like to fill up this hallway. And I'm sure many of you wanted an update on Eugito. Everything went pretty good. Well, almost. We had to land back down after we took off to make some repairs. This time we just insulated the whole thing in, so that when we took off, nothing in here overheated. As you can see, we're collecting a lot of resin. So much so that combined with the tungsten, we've got a little backlog here at the interplanetary launcher. It's not too shabby because we are getting fairly regular deliveries. We're already up to almost a half a ton of iso resin, which is good enough for about 1.5 tons of visco gel or 3 tons of insulation. I don't know what kind of use we have for it yet, but just in case, we'll have plenty in supply. Speaking of which, we're getting a little nutty with the thermium. We're already up to 27 tons. The only project I'm considering with the thermium at this time is throwing a thermium aqua tuner in our petroleum boiler and use it to generate the heat to keep these boiler plates hot. While our giant line of window tiles is doing decent, I'm afraid eventually we're going to run out of heat in here. Although this colony might be over before that happens. Let me know in the comments below if you think of something else you want to see that thermium makes possible. And then we added another rocket to the fleet. Let me introduce you to the ESS Long Look-See. The Long Look-See, now that I'm saying it out loud, may not have been the best name because it's a bit of a mouthful, but its job is going to be to fly to the distant parts of the star map just so we can check out what these unknown objects are. It's also outfitted with 3 large liquid fuel tanks and 3 small solid oxidizer tanks. And I figure since we're out there, we can also grab some artifacts, so we put in 3 modules. And I'd used a different design on the interior this time, and I'm a little excited about it. First, it has a great hull, which is going to give us a beautiful +6 morale. Not to mention, the dupe in here is going to be eating berry sludge, so it was okay that I wasn't able to get a bedroom or a bathroom in here. Not to mention the fact we don't have a lot of bleachstone for a hand sanitizer. But some of the new additions I like is I've put a smart battery in here for a couple of reasons. First, your smart battery holds more power than a standard size battery, and it only generates 500 DTUs of heat per second, whereas your regular battery only holds 10 kilojoules and it generates 1250 DTUs per second. It has the beautiful telescope, which is necessary to reveal some of those tiles, and additionally it has a manual generator. While the rocket will be in flight, it'll have power coming from the engine. But when the rocket is stationary, sitting in one spot, as the duplicant is using the telescope to scan the surrounding area, the engine doesn't generate any power, hence the reason we need a manual generator. In looking for a pilot for the long look-see, the only really requirement is that they have rocket piloting and astronomy, because they need to be able to use the telescope. So in this case, we're going to go ahead and make Saintly Gator the pilot of this ship. And some of the more astute among you may have noticed that there's a 24 in the top left. That's right. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce you to our newest duplicant, K. K is good at cooking, building, and farming. They're 5 cycles old, and nothing makes K happier than a big tin of glitter and a pack of unicorn stickers. They're also a decent interior decorator, they're super strong, and a bit biohazardous. We have both rockets all crewed up and ready to go. Lady Ruff's gonna go out and do some more artifact hunting, and Saintly Gator is gonna go where no dupe has ever gone before. And I just realized I missed an awesome opportunity to do a triple launch. Well, at least we can have a double launch, right? Better than nothing, I suppose. Hold on, apparently we are taking our time refilling the oxalite. Oh no, I completely forgot the other rocket was launching. Now we don't even get a double flight. But what I have found is sometimes you'll get this invalid message. I've never seen invalid on an errand, but if we uncheck it and check it again, we start getting normal tasks to be able to drop off the oxalite. Even to the point that if you cancel and then go back to it, you can see all the invalid errands are even gone. It is a real shame that we couldn't squeeze a little bit more height into the ESS Susan, because now, unlike the other 2 rockets, they have sort of a limited range of where they can gather from, specifically about 9 tiles out and 9 tiles back in. But this brings something up that I wanted to show you. It's found in the Oxygen Not Included wiki under Spaced Out Rocketry. And as you can see, with our 3 fuel tanks, we're hitting our maximum range at about 30. If we went with the hydrogen engine, yeah, we'd still have a rocket height of 35, but using a similar setup, you can get a range of 48 tiles. But if you remember anything from this playthrough, water has not been easy to come by. So I started thinking, what can I do to create more water? One of the excess materials we actually have on this planetoid is magma, so hold on to your hats. I figured, okay, we can take that magma, turn it into igneous rock, take the igneous rock, feed it to stone hatches to get coal, add a bunch of coal generators that would A, add more power to the grid, but B, create us some carbon dioxide. Once we have all that carbon dioxide, we could then feed it to molten slicksters, getting petroleum. We can then feed that petroleum to a petroleum generator that would produce us more carbon dioxide, which we could then feed more molten slicksters, all the while getting beautiful polluted water. We could then take that polluted water, throw it through a sieve, get regular water, and then finally feed that water to an electrolyzer to get the oxygen and the hydrogen we would need for a liquid hydrogen and a liquid O2 setup. I know, it was a long string. And then I realized, could you imagine me adding 30 to 40 more slicksters and 20 to 30 more stone hatches to this playthrough? We could make the room for the stables using this biome here, and then we could create the liquid oxygen and liquid hydrogen setup in space. But I think that after all that is said and done, we'd be hitting about 1 to 2 frames per second. But man, did it sound like a good idea, huh? So we're gonna stick with our max range of 30, at least with the 2 rockets running the large liquid fuel tanks. The disadvantage is we're not gonna be able to mine using the drill cone, throwing everything into a cargo bay on either of those 2 rocket designs without having liquid hydrogen or liquid oxygen. Which is a bummer, because we could really use some of the materials from some of these far out asteroid fields. For instance, in this chlorine cloud, we could get all the bleach stone we needed. Additionally, this oily asteroid field has straight up methane, and methane's beautiful because you can take it and turn it into natural gas, which then once again, we could throw through a natural gas generator and get some beautiful polluted water. Maybe next time, huh? The ESS Susan is finally refilled with oxalite, so we're going to send them down to this ice asteroid. The ice asteroid doesn't have anything we really want, but we can at least grab the artifact. And then we're going to go over to the obsolete space station module before going home. That'll be 2 artifacts on this trip. You know, I suppose with all of this ice and it being so close, we could use this ice here to feed our liquid oxygen and liquid hydrogen. I don't know. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Without much fanfare, the ESS Let Us Land has landed on Frizola. Step 1, let's go ahead and dig all of this ice out. Maybe we'll even take some of it home. Speaking of which, look at all the beautiful wolframite. We can turn that into more tungsten. And considering there's quite a bit of the planetoid we have not yet seen, I think we're going to go ahead and dig down a little bit. We also need to set up the site a little bit better because we know we're going to be here for a little while. We're going to start by bringing this battery module all the way down. Now, how in the world the duplicants can build and design replaceable and removable rocket modules, but can't figure out how not to dig a tile around their head, I'll never understand. But by moving this a lot lower, we're going to be able to access it and then tie right into its power. We'll throw a conductive wire down here and a nice manual generator. And then to save ourselves from getting radiation sickness, we're going to put down a couple of plastic tiles, and then we'll even do the same thing here above the manual generator. And then finally, we need to put down a gas vent. That way we can get rid of all the carbon dioxide that's going to be stuck inside the Spacefarer module. Oh dear goodness, I just realized I completely forgot reed fiber. There, we can fix that. We'll go ahead and launch some through space. And because the planetoid's so far away, it's going to take 100 rad bolts. And there it goes. I tell you what, international shipping, very convenient and oxygen not included. And it's pretty quick too. The payload's going to be there in about a half a cycle. Now that's a great way to multitask. You can run on the wheel and eat some berry sludge. And look at this, it's our reed fiber. And what's great is you can just click empty storage, and a duplicant will just come over here and shoot some nuts and bolts at it, and it'll magically crack open. I suppose it's probably time for a restart. Now, the whole idea behind the Temporal Tear opener is that you gotta feed it rad bolts. And there's a few challenges to that. First, there's not a lot of power here. To which naturally the answer is usually, well, just throw some solar panels at it. Unfortunately, this planetoid only has 10,000 lux worth of light, but it's not like we have a whole lot of options here. So we're going to set up one solar panel and see what kind of power we're working with. Otherwise, the whole infrastructure might be running off of Carol and Allison power. The second issue is actually getting the radiation. Now, I suppose you could just open up the sky and just dump all that radiation from up there into a rad bolt generator, except just like the light, the rads aren't too high here either. Lucky for us, I happen to know a pretty good design for a Weezwort reactor. You know, if it weren't for bad luck, I wouldn't have any luck at all. Both the Atmos suits wore out at the same exact time. So we're going to have a dupe come all the way through here, repair the suits, and then bring them back, all while holding their breath. Well, I guess there's a little bit of oxygen, but it's not going to be pleasant. We had even queued up one spare Atmos suit. That way, when one wears out, they could have just gone and grabbed it, throwing it into the dock, before even worrying about repairing the old one. I like to always have a spare suit on hand. So here it is at the middle of the cycle, and it looks like the most wattage these solar panels are going to be able to get is around 75 watts. One rad bolt generator is going to take 480 watts. This might take a little bit. I suppose alternatively, you could strap a bunch of steam turbines onto these iron volcanoes, and whenever they erupt, the steam turbines would then provide some sort of power. And because they're just refined metal volcanoes, you wouldn't necessarily need an aqua tuner. It's not like this place wouldn't provide enough cooling for the steam turbine itself. It looks like we find a nice little gravitas building here. Very nice. And there's even a mysterious blender. And yes, apparently they can unpack the interplanetary payloads from underneath the solar panel. We had to ship over some dirt. Something else I forgot. We need dirt for farm tiles. And then we're going to take all these beautiful farm tiles, throw Weezworts in them, and that's how we're going to generate the rad bolts to feed into this missing resources building, into the Temporal Tear opener. So one thing I've noticed is that it's saying the line of sight is obstructed. So apparently we're going to need to remove these diamond window tiles and some of this. But that also means I can't put a solar panel here. This is actually my first time trying to shoot off this Temporal Tear opener. That's how long these colonies last. The last colony we were playing, we didn't quite make it to this point of the game, and the one before it didn't even have this mechanism. Now that I think about it, with this being episode 27 in this series, and I come out with new episodes in this series about once a week, that means this series is almost 6 months old. Hope you're still enjoying it. One system that I definitely should have thought of and will do in the future is we should have put an auto sweeper here with a conveyor rail that anytime we get the random food inside the pod, we could print it out here and it would automatically be shipped to the tree. It's not a big deal, but Hungry Boy has to eat. Well, now you know the reason why we brought 20 tons of phosphorite. And if you're wondering how long 20 tons would last, well, each wart seed's going to take 4 kilos per cycle. We're running a total of 5 wart seeds, so that's a total of 20 kilos per cycle, which means 20 tons will last us 8,000 cycles. If it takes 1,000 cycles to put enough rad bolts into this temporal tear opener, I'm uninstalling oxygen not included. We did make sure to put an auto sweeper in this system because the rads here are going to get pretty serious pretty quick, and we don't exactly have any medical facilities here on Frizola. Another trick you might want to use is make sure your farm tiles are all priority 1. That way there's less of a chance of a duplicate coming in here to deliver the phosphorite, and only the auto sweeper will end up doing it. Let's go ahead and connect into our rad bolt generator, get everything pointed in the right direction. That's not bad. 150 rad bolts per cycle. We also put in a second manual generator because after the work's done, we're just going to be sitting around and waiting. So might as well have the duplicants help out on the power front. So we just delivered our first 50 rad bolts to the temporal tear opener, and it charged it by 0.5%. So that means it takes 100 rad bolts to get 1%, which means we're going to have to deliver 10,000 rad bolts. Not too bad. While we wait, I'm going to do some more digging just to reveal more of the planetoid, but it's relatively unremarkable. We're also going to grab the blender, put it on a pedestal inside the rocket, but you can pretty much get the general idea already. Looks to be 4 iron volcanoes. I think before we leave, we're just going to do something funny like open up all the iron volcanoes. We also remembered to dig out this area here, and we no longer get the line of sight is blocked. So I suppose when this thing shoots its laser, it's going to go through these window tiles? I sure hope so. We're also going to try to press our luck by adding another rad bolt generator. I'm not 100% convinced we have the power to support it. Even if both duplicates are running, that's only 800 watts, and they can't run all day. And the 6 solar panels are only giving us at max about 450 watts. So we're going to see how much we can stretch this Chungus battery. Well, it didn't work. We started getting brownouts, and when a rad bolt generator loses power, it loses all of its rad bolts. So based on 150 rads per cycle, this is going to take 65 cycles. Now the good thing is we have enough food for the duplicates for 65 cycles. I think we have enough water for the duplicates for 65 cycles, and if not, we can melt some ice. The question is, do we have enough oxalite for 65 cycles? I think I can get one more solar panel in here, though. The neat thing, though, is the long look-see actually found the temporal tear. You can see it's still closed, but at least we know where it is now. Okay, here's the plan. Right now, the grid is pulling more than just the 480 watts from the rad bolt generator and occasionally the auto sweeper. And that's due to the fact that everything in here is also being powered by those solar panels and the manual generators. My theory and hope is that the solar panels will stay on long enough to charge the battery to get 1 or maybe even 2 shots from the rad bolt generator before it becomes nighttime and draining all this power. We're going to test the theory by taking off in the rocket. But before we do that, we're going to need to close this thing up, because as we've seen, whenever we launch this rocket, it likes to destroy everything in its path. So we're going to put up some insulated tiles here and see how it goes. Actually, all we really need to do is snip the power lines and separate from the grid. Now we get to see how long the power lasts. Well, at the minimum, it can fire once, so that reduces it down to about 50 rad bolts per day before we end up losing power and then have to start the process all over the next cycle. But at that rate, it would take 200 cycles. Let's get back to the drawing board, shall we? I was considering sending over a bunch of coal and setting up a couple of coal generators here with some automation with a smart battery and let it provide the power. Unfortunately, between our home planetoid and its connected planetoid through teleporters, we only have about 35 tons of coal. And based on my math, that 35 tons worth of coal would last about 60 to 70 cycles, which would be enough to finish supplying the temporal tear opener with rad bolts. But it'd be a pain to go get the coal and come back, or to shoot it at 200 kilos a pop across the star map using the interplanetary launcher. So I think in the end, we're going to end up going with Carol and Allison power. We'll get it to about 99% and then let the dupes get back into the rocket, letting the rad bolt generator finish off its job, and then we'll get to watch the temporal tear opener in all of its magnificence. Unfortunately, that's not going to be during this episode, because as I said before, it's going to take a long time. Some of the alternatives is I could have brought enough coal to begin with, and then we could have powered a few rad bolt generators. It made quick work of the opener. But I'm not in a hurry, and I'll just let this work in the background. In other news, the ESS Long Look-See is going to discover what this unknown object is, and the ESS Susan is heading home now, and the spoils that we received are the office mug and the wristwatch. So let me know in the comments below what you would have done. Gone back to get the coal? Shot it over? Find an alternative power source? I can tell you one thing for sure. I really do miss running a lot of hatches, because that coal comes in mighty handy. I'm looking forward to hearing what you would have done in my shoes, and seeing if you have any suggestions. So until next time, I'll talk to you soon.